Hi, I'm Darren, 28, and 6 weeks ago I won $200,000 in a local lottery scratch-off, and within a week, my parents sued me. The morning I scratched that ticket, I was sitting in the break room of the auto shop where I've worked since I was 20. Oil under my nails, cup of coffee that tasted like burned hope, and a scratcher I'd bought half as a joke. I didn't expect to win more than $5. When I saw the zeros line up, I had to read it 3 times. Then I started laughing like a lunatic. I called my buddy Jordan, then my sister Maddie. She screamed louder than I did. I should have stopped there. But I didn't. I called my parents. It was a rookie mistake. I was excited, and I stupidly thought they'd be happy for me. My dad picked up and I said, "You're not gonna believe this. I just won $200,000. He was silent for a second, then said, "Are you serious?" I laughed. "Swear to God. Just scratched it on my break." He hung up without another word. Weird, yeah, but not totally out of character. My dad's always been the stoic type. I thought maybe he was in shock. An hour later, my mom called. "Darren," she said in that tight voice she used to use when I was failing algebra. "You're not thinking clearly. That money doesn't belong to just you." I thought I misheard. "I scratched the ticket, Mom." "Yes," she said. "But who raised you? Who fed you? Who bought your clothes all those years? Don't you think it's time you paid some of that back?" I actually laughed. I thought it was a joke. It wasn't. 2 days later, I got served at work. At work. Papers dropped right in my greasy hands by a guy who looked half sorry for me. My parents were suing me for restitution of parental investment. Their words. In black ink. On actual court documents. They were demanding $191,000 to reflect the financial burden of raising Darren from birth to independence. They had spreadsheets, estimates, even a printout from some cost of raising a child calculator online. I was humiliated. Word spread fast, because of course it did. Small town. Local gossip. The headlines didn't help either. Man sued by parents for refusing to share lottery winnings. Ungrateful son with a scratch-off fortune. One radio show called me the most selfish man in Colorado. I hadn't even bought anything yet. I was still driving my 2007 Corolla and living in a rented basement apartment. The worst part? My parents went on the local morning show to explain their side. "We just want fairness," my mom said, eyes glassy with practiced emotion. "We worked so hard to give Darren everything. Now that he has something, he wants to keep it all to himself." My dad added, "We're not greedy. We just want what's right." They wanted all of it. The full $200,000. I stopped answering their calls. I stopped answering anyone's calls. My own sister messaged me just, "What the hell, Darren?" I didn't know how to explain that I felt like I was being robbed in public by the 2 people who were supposed to protect me. So I got a lawyer. I'd never hired one before, but I picked the most practical, unsentimental guy I could find. His name was Cliff. He looked like a grizzly bear who taught night school law on the side. After he read the complaint, he looked up and said, "I hope you're ready to burn some bridges." I nodded. Already on fire. The first court hearing was surreal. I walked in wearing my only suit, funeral black, and there were my parents, seated across from me like strangers. My mom didn't even look at me. My dad nodded once, like we were doing a business deal. The kind that ends with someone losing a house. Their lawyer stood up and opened with, "This is not a case of greed, Your Honor. This is a case of justice." Cliff muttered under his breath, "Get ready for the Oscar reel." They argued I'd promised to support the family if I ever came into money. They brought up some offhand comment I made at Thanksgiving 2 years ago about sharing if I ever struck it big. I'd said it while passing mashed potatoes. I might have been tipsy. They had my high school report cards, financial aid statements, receipts from when I was a toddler. They claimed my mere existence cost them $192,631.43, and that now that I had $200,000, I owed it all back. Minus a fair allowance to maintain self-sufficiency. Self-sufficiency, in their minds, was apparently just enough to afford a futon and a bus pass. I wanted to scream. Instead, I let Cliff speak. Calm, deliberate, lethal. He called it what it was, a family shakedown. Then he dropped the bomb. I had never lived with them past age 18. That they hadn't helped me with college. That when my car broke down last winter, they told me to figure it out like a man. He pulled out texts, emails, even a voicemail where my mom called me a selfish leech for not helping cover their tax debt. The judge listened, took notes, didn't say much. Outside the courtroom, my dad approached me. His eyes were sharp, not sad. "You're making a mistake," he said. "We're still your parents. We made you." "No," I said. "You raised me. And I'm grateful. But I'm not a product you get to cash out." He shook his head like I was some disappointment. My mom just stood behind him, arms crossed, her face unreadable. When I got home that night, I found my sister waiting outside my apartment. "You think I want anything from you?" she said. "I'm just here to say, this isn't normal, Darren. They're not okay." I didn't know what stung more, the fact that she said it, or the fact that I'd needed someone else to say it for me. The ruling came faster than I expected. 3 weeks later, I stood in that same courtroom while the judge read from a stack of papers. His voice was steady, unhurried, like he was reading a weather report. "There is no legal precedent," he said, "for adult children owing retroactive reimbursement for the cost of their upbringing, barring explicit contractual obligation." Then he looked directly at my parents. "And no such contract exists here." My chest didn't rise with joy. I didn't fist pump. I just stood there, numb, while the gavel came down. Case dismissed. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. A few stuck mics in my face. "Any comment for your parents? Will you be helping them at all? Do you feel guilty?" I said nothing. I walked right past the cameras and into the parking lot. That's when I saw my mom standing near my car. She didn't look angry. Just hollow. "You embarrassed us," she said quietly, like I'd broken some unspoken pact. "You couldn't even give us 10%? I finally snapped. "You sued me. On TV. You went to the press before you went to me. You wanted everything. Not 10%. Her mouth trembled, but not with grief. With contempt. "You wouldn't have anything if it weren't for us." "Yeah," I said. "I wouldn't have trauma. I wouldn't flinch every time I checked the mail now, waiting for another ambush." She blinked like I'd slapped her. But I wasn't done. "I told you I won." "You didn't say congratulations. You got a lawyer." She didn't reply. Just turned and walked away, clutching her purse like it held her last bargaining chip. That night, I went home and opened a beer I'd been saving since the win. Sat on the couch. Turned off my phone. Just breathed. Until I heard a knock. It was Maddie. Again. She sat beside me, curled her legs under herself, and said, "They tried to guilt me too. Said I should have testified that you promised to share the money with the family." "What did you say?" She smirked. "Told them if they sued me next, I'd counterclaim for every hour of babysitting I ever did unpaid." I laughed. I actually laughed. First real one in weeks. Then she got serious. "You okay?" I looked at her. My sister, who'd seen all the same red flags I had, just learned to live with them longer. "I don't think we were ever a real family," I said. "I think I just didn't notice until I had something they could take." She didn't argue. Just nodded. Quiet. Knowing. After the court ruled in my favor, I thought the dust would settle. It didn't. The headlines disappeared, but the whispers didn't. I walked into the grocery store and 2 people I'd known since middle school suddenly forgot how to make eye contact. My landlord asked if I was still flush with lawsuit money. One of the guys at work joked about me winning the lottery twice, once in cash, once in court. It was meant to be funny. But it just made me feel radioactive. Then came the letters. 3 envelopes in the mailbox. No return address. All in my mother's handwriting. The first was 4 pages long and started with, "We didn't raise you to be this cold." The second said I'd turn the whole town against them. The third just said, "You'll regret this when we're gone." Cliff told me to document everything. "Just in case," he said, which made my skin crawl. Because what kind of parent sends a threat disguised as a farewell? I didn't respond to any of them. But I did take Maddie's advice and started therapy. I didn't expect much. But after 2 sessions, I admitted out loud, I think I loved the idea of my parents more than I ever loved them. The therapist didn't blink. Just said, that's a start. Meanwhile, the money was sitting untouched. $200,000 sounds like freedom when you're broke. But now it just sat there, turning to dust in my brain. Any time I thought about using it, I felt guilty. Paralyzed. I kept thinking, if I buy anything, they'll say I'm flaunting it. If I don't, they'll say I didn't deserve it anyway. Then Maddie came over again, this time holding a business card and a cheap cupcake with 1 candle in it. What's this? I asked. She grinned. You forgot to celebrate not getting robbed. The card was for a financial planner. A real one. Not one of those dudes on YouTube telling you to buy crypto with your grandma's inheritance. Call him, she said. Use the money. Or don't. But don't let them make you ashamed of winning. They already took enough. That night I lit the cupcake candle. Sang happy birthday to nobody. Blew it out. Then I finally opened the banking app. Balance, $199,982.53. Because apparently, I'd bought a sandwich the day I won. The first thing I bought was a dishwasher. Not a car. Not a watch. Not even a vacation. Just a dishwasher. $649. Stainless steel. Whisper quiet. It wasn't even for me, it was for Maddie. She'd been using this creaky old thing since college. I installed the new one myself and left a sticky note on it that said, "Thanks for doing the dishes when nobody else did." She cried. Like full-on mascara disaster. Then punched me in the shoulder and said, "Now you're really my favorite brother." Thing is, that small moment, doing something for someone who didn't demand it, felt better than anything else had in months. So I kept going. I made a donation to the auto tech program at my old community college. Quietly. No plaque. Just enough to cover a few students' toolkits. I remembered how brutal it felt to be 19 and broke and watching everyone else show up with Snap-on boxes while I had my grandpa's rusty wrenches in a plastic tote. I didn't tell anyone. Not even Cliff. Then I finally made the appointment with the financial planner. His name was Greg, and he wore bow ties like it was a personality trait. But he was kind. Practical. Unimpressed by the drama. "You want to make this last?" he said. "Or you want to make a point?" I said. "Both." We sat down with numbers. I learned what taxes would take. What I could keep. What it would look like to have security instead of revenge. That night, I went home and made a list titled, Things I Couldn't Afford Before I Was Sued by My Own Parents. It wasn't big things. It was stuff like new tires before winter, therapy, a proper mattress, taking 2 days off without stress vomiting, buying someone a dishwasher. I stared at the list for a long time. Then I crossed out the title and wrote a new one. Things I Deserve Without Guilt. I framed it. Hung it by the door. And slowly, very slowly, I started to forgive myself for surviving people who couldn't celebrate me without a receipt. About a month after the case was dismissed, I got invited to a family reconciliation dinner. No joke. That's what the email subject line said. It came from my mom. Full CC list, Maddie, me, even some cousins I hadn't seen since 2015. Location? A mid-priced Italian restaurant in town. The message was simple. We feel it's time to heal. Let's put the past behind us. Please come with an open heart. No apology. No responsibility. Just a request to pretend none of it ever happened over lasagna. I stared at it for a long time. Then forwarded it to Maddie, who replied within 30 seconds. I'll go if you do. But I'm wearing a shirt that says ask me about the lawsuit. She was joking. Kind of. I didn't respond right away. I wasn't sure what I wanted. Part of me felt like showing up and being the bigger person. Another part wanted to stay home, eat cereal in sweatpants, and not share oxygen with people who put my name in a court filing. Greg, the financial planner, had once said, "Revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just living well and never asking for approval again." so I skipped the dinner. But I did send an RSVP. Just one sentence. If there's healing to be done, it starts with an apology, not a menu. I didn't get a reply. The dinner happened anyway. Maddie went, mostly for the free tiramisu. She texted me live updates the whole time. 6:41 p.m. Dad's pretending the lawsuit was a misunderstanding. I almost choked on my breadstick. 6:52 p.m. Mom just said you're going through a selfish phase. I asked if that was before or after the subpoena. 7:08 p.m. Aunt Sharon just told me I should be grateful your win gave the family something to talk about. I asked if she wanted a framed copy of the dismissal. 7:27 p.m. I took the leftovers. No regrets. The next morning, I woke up to a voicemail from my dad. His voice was calm. Almost rehearsed. You've made your point, Darren. I hope you feel proud of yourself. Just remember who took care of you all those years when you couldn't even tie your own shoes. Someday you'll be a parent. Maybe then you'll understand what it means to be owed something. I saved it. Not out of sentiment. Out of proof. 2 months after the lawsuit, I found myself standing in the kitchen of my new place. No roommates, no leaking pipes, no passive-aggressive post-its on the fridge, and for the first time in a long time, the silence didn't feel like loneliness. It felt like peace. The apartment wasn't fancy. It was on the second floor above a bakery that started prepping dough at 4 a.m., which meant I woke up to the smell of rising bread and clattering trays. But I didn't mind. It beat the sound of my parents' voices echoing in my skull. That morning, I opened a letter from the state's Office of Civil Mediation. It was from my mom. She'd filed for informal reconciliation, apparently that's a thing. She wanted me to attend a session with a third-party mediator, to restore family unity and explore potential support arrangements. Support arrangements. She meant money. She meant again. I didn't respond. Instead, I called my lawyer Cliff. Is there a way to file something that says I'm done forever? He laughed. Not legally. Emotionally? That's up to you. So I wrote my own version. I drafted a letter. Not for court. For them. Dear Mom and Dad. I didn't owe you before the lottery. I don't owe you now. You didn't raise me as an investment, and I'm not your return on it. You chose to sue me instead of speak to me. You chose to go to the press instead of your son. That was your decision. This is mine. We're done. There will be no more meetings, no more sessions, no more veiled requests for support, apologies, or favors. You showed me who you are. I believe you now. Goodbye. I printed it. Signed it. Sealed it. Didn't send it. Instead, I tucked it in a drawer next to the old photo of us at my high school graduation. My dad's hand on my shoulder, my mom's smile just wide enough to look real. I don't hate them. But I don't trust them. And that, I've learned, is enough. Maddie and I started having weekly dinners, sometimes takeout, sometimes something burned to hell in my oven. We didn't talk about our parents much. But when we did, it wasn't bitter anymore. Just factual. Like weather reports. It's gonna rain, she said one night, looking out the window. I shrugged. Let it. 6 months after the lawsuit, I bought myself a pair of boots. Not just any boots, custom ones. Handmade leather. Waterproof, steel toe, broken in by a guy named Marvin who ran a workshop behind an old feed store 2 towns over. They weren't flashy. But they were mine. When I walked out of that shop, the gravel crunched under me in a way that made something in my chest unclench. It took me a while to realize, I didn't feel like someone else's son anymore. I felt like a person. People kept asking what I was going to do with the rest of the money. Like it was this big prize I had to show off or justify. I didn't spend most of it. I kept my job at the garage. Moved into a slightly bigger place. Got Maddie a new laptop when hers gave out. Set aside a chunk for a future I hadn't even begun to sketch yet. I didn't escape my old life. I just stopped apologizing for outgrowing it. The funny thing about trauma is that it doesn't end with the event. The lawsuit was the earthquake. But the months after were the aftershocks, sudden, sharp reminders that the ground beneath me had shifted permanently. Like when I got a birthday card in the mail from my mom. It just said, We still love you. That doesn't change. No apology. No acknowledgement. Just a vague, haunting attempt at sentimentality, as if love alone was supposed to erase the fact that they tried to financially gut me in public. I didn't respond. I didn't rage or cry or slam a door. I just threw it away. Maddie and I started doing this thing we called Tuesdays That Don't Suck. Every Tuesday night we'd pick something dumb but specific. One week it was bowling. The next week we watched every Fast and Furious movie back to back. We once spent 4 hours trying to learn how to fold fitted sheets, only to give up and turn them into makeshift capes. We laughed a lot. Ate cheap sushi. Talked about dumb memories that didn't involve our parents. She told me she was planning to move out of state next year. New job. Clean start. I didn't try to guilt her or ask her to stay. Instead, I said, "Make sure they have good takeout where you land." She hugged me. Not like someone afraid to leave, but like someone who finally believed she could. About 8 months after the court ruling, I ran into my dad. It was at a gas station. He was coming out as I was going in. We both froze. He looked older. Not in the physical sense. His posture was still stiff, his hair still neatly combed, but something in his eyes had collapsed. Like the part of him that was used to being obeyed had finally withered. He didn't say anything at first. Just stared. Then he muttered, "You think you're better than us now?" I didn't flinch. "No," I said. "I think I'm free of you." That was it. He turned and walked off. No last word. No lecture. No guilt trip. I stood there for a second, staring at my reflection in the glass door. I didn't feel proud. I didn't feel cold. I just felt done. Therapy was slow, like untangling Christmas lights someone had stuffed into a bag while crying. But little by little, I started understanding the difference between disappointment and betrayal. Parents are allowed to be flawed. But when their love comes with invoices, it's not love, it's leverage. And I'm not leverage anymore. On the 1-year anniversary of my lottery win, I took a road trip. Just me, the Corolla, yes, still, and a playlist Maddie made titled Freedom Beats Volume 1, which was 80% Taylor Swift and 20% angry banjo music. I drove to the state border. Parked. Got out. Walked about 20 feet into the woods. And screamed. Not out of rage, but release. A full body, lungs cracking open kind of scream. When I was done, I stood there for a while. Just breathing. Watching leaves fall. No cameras. No headlines. No parents waiting with calculators and old grocery receipts. Just a man in quiet boots, standing on his own 2 feet. A few weeks ago, someone from the local paper reached out. They wanted to do a 1 year later piece about the lottery. About me. About what I'd learned. I declined the interview. Instead, I sent them a short note. Winning the lottery didn't change me. It revealed what was already broken. Losing my parents wasn't the cost, it was the receipt. And in the end, the real prize wasn't the money. It was the silence that came after the storm. They never published that. But that's okay. It wasn't for them. It was for me. And I'm finally home.